That's what great restaurants do. Everything else melts away and you find yourself buried in an experience. You find yourself really like engaged and committed to that hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it is that you've chosen to sit there for. It is wholly and solely an experience of being present and in the moment. My sense of purpose, especially, is to deliver happiness. And I discovered very early in my career that food does that. Food makes people happy. The reason for my purpose being there is my family and the people I love. At its simplest and its deepest levels, food is nourishment. And nourishment comes from a place of generosity. It comes from a place of care and of nurture and of desire to facilitate longer life. I have this motto that be eternally curious. The curiosity feeds into how and why things play out. If your notion or way of thinking is, I am here, I need to get there, and I will do this to achieve it, you can mitigate a lot of joy and a lot of other opportunity entering your life in that process.
Before we get into this episode, I just want to thank you for being here. I started this podcast to spark conversations that inspire, creatively, personally, and everything in between. So if you'd like to support that mission, the best way is to hit that subscribe or follow button wherever you're watching or listening to this. That'll help other creative minds discover us and also ensures that you won't miss any of the incredible guests that we've got coming up. Because when this passion is shared, it grows exponentially. So thank you, and now let's get stuck into it. Are you much hands-on in the kitchen these days?
Yeah, still in the kitchen. Like I'll go from here to Chin Chin.
Yep.
From Chin Chin, I'll go to Hawker, and I'll spend the afternoon, evening in the kitchen there.
Oh wow, okay.
So yeah, it's still there is still 100%
hands-on.
Yeah.
And that would just be what, like just two double? Is it what is it called? Like
well, I just call it being at work.
You're never off.
Yeah. So like if you're there, you're there. And
Yeah.
sometimes you're there for a day. Sometimes you're there day night. Sometimes you're there night. Sometimes it all depends on what's going on, right?
Yeah.
So
You guys will
Wednesday,
have
Thursday
functions
this week, I'm doing some menu development work. So we'll do tastings for those in the afternoon. Then I'll hang around and do some service. And
Is that a constant reevaluation of the menu?
yes,
Because I know like it's going to be somewhat seasonal.
yes,
But, so you set something in stone, and then you kind of just let it play out and just let it see how the public resonate with it.
there's elements of that.
Yeah.
There's elements of knowing what it is, knowing who you are and what you need to deliver.
Yeah.
And then there's elements of the creative act, right? Like, so there is,
Just a spin.
yeah, there's like, especially for our restaurants and definitely for Chin Chin, there is a core part of the menu that will never change because it's what the guests have come to expect from us.
Signature, yeah.
It's the fan favorites. It's the dishes that you tell your mate from New York, you've got to go to Chin Chin and have the mussman curry, or you've got to go and have the kingfish sashimi, or those sort of things, right? So they never stay. So outside of that, there's a creative piece that you have to have active for the kitchen to stay connected and committed.
Yeah.
And for the front of house and for the guests. Like then there needs to be that foundational piece, the structural foundational piece that never changes, and then there needs to be the creative ebbs and flows off the side of that keeps it.
You need to give the your patrons another reason to come back and to try something new.
Yeah.
Man, the last time when we caught up, there was so much for me to think about, and I think it was quite relevant that the conversation that we had wasn't necessarily one that I anticipated we'd get into. And I think that why it was quite pertinent was the fact that one of the biggest takeaways that you shared, and it really got me thinking about this, was that you said that it's not necessarily the outcome that you're anticipating that gets you excited. It's the possibility of all outcomes. And the fact that we caught up, went into a conversation expecting it to potentially go one direction, and it just opened up into a whole gamut, a whole spectrum of thinking, talking points. And it really gave me a lot to consider, especially with the way that I'm carrying with what I'm doing, and just to almost let go of expectations and just to do. So how has that, like, is that an ethos that you've always carried with you? And then on the back of that, where you are now, does it feel as though that it could have been any different?
I think you asking the question basically suggests that yes, and it could have 100% be different. There's a million possibilities, right? The fact that I am where I am currently in life is related and connected to all the decisions and choices that were made within any given scenario on the path.
And so, and this is the thing, I don't think that when people are going to listen to this episode, I don't think they themselves are not going to anticipate how this conversation is going to go, only because there is just so much depth. And not that I didn't think that you'd be bringing a lot of depth. I think that someone of your caliber doing what it is that you do, you do carry yourself with a lot of depth and have a propensity to analyze things, to understand the environment that you're in, and know in great detail and in great intimacy what it is that you do. And what I wanted to make sure was that we have a conversation that peels back the layers to really get down to the core of how you think and how that translates into what it is that you do.
So a seed for answering the questions up to now, and for entering this conversation openly. Curiosity is a really important component of my life. I have this motto that be eternally curious.
Mm-hmm.
And the curiosity feeds into how and why things play out. It's important to be able to sit at point A and look at point B and understand why point B is there and why you need to get there. But it's also important to understand that between point A and point B, there's a million different paths. And the most obvious, or the one that looks like that's the way you have to go, is not always necessarily the right one, right? And if your notion or way of thinking is, I am here, I need to get there, and I will do this to achieve it, you can mitigate a lot of joy and a lot of other opportunity entering your life in that process. Because sure, that might be bang, bang, done. Okay, cool, I'm at point B, excellent. But life rarely works in a linear, non-chaotic fashion, right? Life is anything but linear and generally quite chaotic. It's the sum of all things, doing all things, that leads to.
And it's almost like our desire for things to be linear and to be less chaotic is the act of almost having to not necessarily embrace it, but accept that it's not. Because
it's easier to control things moving in a straight line than it is over bumps and turns and twists and corkscrews and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
Each time one of those things enters, your ability to steer the ship or to drive the car forward becomes more complex. right? So sure, straight line, excellent, cool. I got from A to B, done. But then all of the lessons and all of life's learnings and everything for me, everything of value sits in embracing the chaos and embracing the challenges that life will invariably throw at you.
So do you think that there was, like, for what you do to get into the position that you're in and to have achieved the things that you have achieved, and to be, I don't even want to say renowned, because I want to just don't look at the external component of what it is that you do, but just internal, and understanding that you are of a chef of world-class caliber, that couldn't have just have happened by accident. I wouldn't imagine so. I feel as though that there would have been some kind of, whether it be intentional or unintentional, force that had led you that way. Like, when you say making a choice, there was a choice to go from A to B, and then a choice to go from B to C. And all these little tiny micro choices made you, or landed you in the position that you're in now, and have done some incredible things. And not just have done some incredible things, but have a really deep understanding of what it means and how the cultural impact it has.
Yeah. Look, Chin Chin's an amazing restaurant, right? Like, it's been incredibly busy since day one. It has afforded not only myself, but the entire team that's involved with it to be able to deliver to a huge, crazily vast number of guests the how we envisage the art of hospitality, right? We've been able to operate at a very high level. The process of me getting from where I stepped off, deciding to be a chef, to getting to there was definitely a lot of very conscious decisions that I made. And interestingly, like these days people talk about the algorithm, right?
Mm-hmm.
The digital world has most things in the digital world has an algorithm that it follows, and the more detail you punch into it, the more refined the algorithm becomes, and you end up with this sort of blanket, refined, filtered version of the world and the things that you like going on around you.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, I made very conscious decisions to work in a cafe, work in a high-end restaurant, work in events, work in catering, so rather than just go restaurant, stepping stones, more refined each time, I wanted to understand what all the components and all the facets of the industry were and how they operated. So that for me, it was like, I worked in 30-seat restaurant, I worked in a 400-seat restaurant in London. You know, I did brunch services, I did breakfast, I did late night food, I did all day dining, I did all those things because it was like, I don't want the opportunity for my skill set and my delivery to be pigeonholed into a Benjamin just does that.
Right.
And I feel largely that my ability to step into Chin Chin and deliver to Chris the things that he required for that business to find success were largely based off the fact that I'd spent 5 years working in London, working in venues that did 400, 500, 600 covers in a service. There wasn't a lot of restaurants in Australia back in the day doing those sort of numbers, right? And there is a certain skill involved in delivering high quality to large volume.
Yeah.
Right? And so I facilitated that learning by going over to London and doing those things.
So it was almost like having to step outside of the realm that you wanted to be in to learn what you could then pour back into it.
And so, like, event spaces, you get to do a 700 cover service. You get to do a 1,200, 1,500 cover service. Suddenly you look at numbers and you go, large numbers doesn't have to equal a drop in quality. large numbers doesn't have to be a decrease in effort. Large numbers don't have to just be get it in, get it out, right? You can look at numbers and go, right, if I do X, Y, and Z step each dish and then learn how to break those dishes down so that I start with an end result and work backwards from it, rather than start at the beginning and think, how can I make a dish work? I go, what's the greatest dish I want to do? And then how do I make it work? That became a very large part of the way I thought about life. So you said before, you know where you want to be, but all possibilities are open, right? It's a big component of my thinking. Like I look at the goal, I get my head around it, I really understand it, and I go, what does that look and feel like? It feels like this. And then I step backwards from it and go, which path can I get? I can get it there, I can get it over here, I can get to it this way, I can get to it that way, I can do these 3 steps. And then within that, as I start the rollout and approach those things, if a curveball comes, will you just deal with it on the way? Because you've already prepared yourself for the notion that the curveball will come.
Yeah, and the curveball could just be an added ingredient to it.
Yeah,
Well,
or it could be a worldwide pandemic.
Yeah, it could be.
Right? Like that's the notion of things. So rather than go, here's the goal, must do everything to attain it, and nothing will get in my way, you basically go, there's the goal, we'll do whatever it takes to get there, and hopefully a hell of a lot of things will get in my way, because as they get in my way, the lessons learnt from each of those things will empower me to deliver a greater result than what I thought I was going to.
Yeah, I use this analogy when I think about what I'm actually trying to work on here and what I'm doing is I liken it almost to like a carrot on a stick, where you see the carrot and that's the goal, and it's always just right in front of you, and it's steering you in a direction. So even though you're thinking that that you're going this way, you could actually be going this way and chasing that goal, and it's constantly just pivoting, but it's still in front of you. And along that journey or that process, you're going to arrive at different obstacles, and it will alter the complexion of what the end goal is going to look like. So it's almost like to not necessarily, and to your point, to not be so fixated on what it is, that what the end result is going to be, because you probably wouldn't ever be able to imagine that what you're doing is, well, you like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you probably wouldn't have envisioned it to be exactly as it is. It would have just been a broad idea of, I just want to be able to do the best in this broad realm. And then as you get closer and closer to it, it starts to narrow in and hone in, and then becomes real.
I almost, yes, but almost to like, again, I believe you find yourself where you need to be, right? So I believe life puts you where you need to be to gain awareness and understanding, gain value, to gain what you need out of life in that moment. Yep. And a moment can span 20 years, right? Like a moment is not necessarily, we define a moment as a short period of time, but a moment can be an extremely long period of time as well. Yep. Lots of people would argue that point, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. But for me, a moment is not defined by a short or long period of time. It's a period of time in which the things encapsulated in that stay true, right?
Yep.
Where those factors stay relevant. That's a moment.
Yep.
And so it was more about me being open to what life was, to where it was pushing me, than conscious choices to do that thing.
Yeah. Okay. I appreciate that.
So you, like, for instance, when I first met Chris, I was working in a cafe in South Melbourne. Chris offered me a job, and I said, I'm flattered, love it, but I'm a really loyal employee and I'm very happy where I am, and thank you. And Chris said, if that ever changes, let me know. And fair enough, a year later it had changed. And it just so happened to coincide with the opening of Chin Chin. And so by not opening or closing doors, but merely allowing them to be usable whenever you need them to be, the world provided opportunity for me.
And that opportunity came about because you already had an affinity with Asian cuisine, Thai culture, Asian culture in general, and had a deep understanding of how the food and customs and all the other facets kind of meld together. So I don't know. There's definitely like there's a space for when you resign to allowing things just to happen, then you really allow for serendipity to almost move the pieces in your favor, right? And just letting that happen. So how did you even firstly become familiar with Asian culture and Asian cuisine, specifically Thai?
There's a fairly deep rooting on the path. I've been a Buddhist since I was young, largely led by a conversation with my mum where it was time for me to do my communion and Catholic communion, and I didn't agree with it. And Mum said, "That's fine, but you need to go off and discover what it is you want to have faith in, because the world's bigger than you. It's larger than you, and you've got to believe in something. It helps you with reasoning and etc." And so I went off and read everything I could, and the Buddhist philosophy sat well with me. As I was sharing with a mate the other day, for me it came down to the difference between a philosophy and a doctrine. And I feel far more comfortable following a philosophy than I do following a doctrine.
Yep. Agreed.
For my value set, one shouldn't do things out of fear. They should do it out of goodness and reasoning. And so that opened the door to the world of Asian culture and Asian architecture and design and food and philosophy and interestingly enough, it just happens to be Southeast Asia just happens to be geographically in a pretty insanely beautiful part of the world, one that is also quite geographically resonant with Australia. So food-wise, a vast majority of things that grow well in Asia grow well in Australia, especially through the tropics of Australia and the northern reaches of Australia. And yeah, it was just this, I don't know, it made my brain tick. It was like something connected. There was every time we've traveled through Thailand and Vietnam and Malaysia and Singapore and Bali and Indonesia, there's a generosity in the interaction with the people of each of those regions. And I think it's the generosity that resonates with me. There's a openness and a willingness to share, and there's a kindness, and there's I don't know, it just always.
When you look at when you say the geography, and you look at how cultures have established in different regions, the geography plays a big part, but not just in terms of you're in this particular area, so you have to abide by these set of parameters and rules. But the climate's going to largely dictate what they can eat, what they wear, and then that kind of truncates into other areas of customs as well. And when you say Southeast Asia and Australia, and it didn't occur to me until we were chatting about it, that culturally, because Australia is quite infant in terms of our how we've established our culture and identity, and it's a bit of a mishmash, and it's quite malleable. Yeah. Whereas other areas like Asia in general, but also just all the specific countries within Asia, there's a lot of history there. Europe, there's a lot of history. Pretty much every part except for US and Australia, where it's still largely not undefined, but constantly changing and shifting without being anchored to anything necessarily historical. So then it does beg like how we have this conflict with what we do, say, think, feel, believe, and then also what the climate allows for the type of food that we eat. So it's not quite as holistic as other cultures, if you know what I mean.
Possibly. Yeah, I mean, interestingly, I grew up in a small country town in New South Wales. I went to an Aboriginal preschool, and that we used to make breads on the fire and do all sorts of stuff out in the playground connected to this preschool, and so my appreciation of Aboriginal heritage and culture and its impact on our country, their country, is that there is a deep running, for them, there's a deep running understanding and appreciation of the land and the connection and place and position. And those things resonate with me as well, right? So like food becomes a component of that, and you lean into how that interacts and why people interact with it, and the act of feeding and the act of sharing and the act of community and coming together, all become a big part of. And so, yes, there is, certainly as a Western culture, we are young and infant in our notion of what Australia is, but there is a deep, long-running history of tribe and community and value that is the undercurrent of what Australia is. And I think it's taken us a long time to come to terms with that and to connect with it, but that is also intrinsically woven through the notion of Asian cultures and my experience of what I've learnt there, right?
Yeah.
Like if you look at that, those are the things that I'm trying to connect with. I want to connect with that deep desire to share with those around me and to be part of something bigger. To be, if you embed yourself in the community space, if you embed yourself in a group scenario, there is so much to learn and gain from.
Yeah.
When we share time and space together in a non-judgmental manner, we start to move in unison together, and then the magic happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Food is a very unique way of transcending a lot of different spaces. You know, how it is primarily sustenance, but yet we can love it. You know, it's more than just something that's keeping us alive, but, you know, then it's something that can be, where it can be both art and science, and not necessarily mutually exclusive. It can be art and science collectively together. And I think, and I would argue that it always is, you know, like it's always both art and science, sustenance and appreciation, all these things intertwined. And I don't think there's really much else that plays in all these varied spaces simultaneously. So it has so much power.
It's a sensorial art form, right?
Yeah.
And all of the senses.
I mean,
especially if you're involved in the cooking process and you are around the cooking process from start to finish, and then the eating, all of the senses come into play from start to finish.
Yeah.
Sight, smell, taste, touch.
And
All of
even
those things.
the community element when you guys are working in the kitchen, that sense of camaraderie and this just having to coordinate and
Well, the kitchen becomes your family, right? Because you spend more time with them under pressurized circumstances than you do with your nearest and dearest. So they largely become your community. They do become your tribe and your gang, right? Like they are, and so you have to learn how to operate within as an individual, but also as a part of a bigger entity.
And even when you say that the food is in itself an art form, I'd even argue that the construction of it, the putting together of it, is when you're seeing these, and you would have been in many high level kitchens. I remember watching the kitchen in Vudemont and just seeing how every single chef in there was moving around in this almost like a choreographed, synchronized sequence.
Yeah, it's very much a dance.
Yeah.
And when you're in the kitchen, when you're actually on the other side of that and you are one of the members of that, you can tell teams that have been operating together for a long time, and you can tell when someone has entered that as a new member, and watching them learn to feel their flow and the ebb and flow of service and how they fit into the movement. Because a well-oiled kitchen is effortless.
It
just flows and ebbs and
absolutely, man. Yeah. It was quite a sight to see, and that was like, I wouldn't imagine it'd be part of a spectacle. I don't think it was necessarily done that way for the patrons, for viewership, but I know that it would have been done just mainly for practical reasons, right? Just to optimize every movement, optimize time and efficiency. But even like in every single part, even just like you want to say the growing of the produce in itself is fucking beautiful. That in itself is like quite miraculous. So that whole process, every part of it, I find it incredibly fascinating. The process of making the food, all the components that are adjacent to the food, the community and the sense of how, and you said this, that like it breaks down barriers. Like it's when you're sitting down and you're breaking bread with someone, you're sharing a meal, animosity is gone. Like we don't sit down and eat through hostility. There is something that's quite powerful and magical and quite beautiful about the process, every step of the process, from making it to consuming it, sharing it, and even just being a bystander and watching it all unfold.
At its both ends of the spectrum, at its simplest and its deepest levels, food is nourishment. And nourishment comes from a place of generosity, right? It comes from a place of care and of nurture and of desire to facilitate longer life. That's what nourishment, especially of the like eating. There's spiritual nourishment. There's all those other things, right? But for food, essentially, it is about ensuring that you're still here later.
Yeah,
because your body requires it, right? Interestingly, you were talking before about eating and it being it's gone above just the notion of nourishment. At its core, it is nourishment, right?
Yeah.
But yes, my understanding is that we are, maybe apart from Labradors, the only sentient beings on the planet that eat for pleasure.
Right, okay.
Everyone else eats every other sentient being, animals, etc., eat for sustenance and nourishment. Right? We eat for pleasure. We have turned it into an experiential thing where we eat because we're hungry and we need to be nourished, but we also eat to entertain ourselves. We eat to remove the weight of the day from ourselves. We eat to escape. We eat to share joy and to experience amazing stories that are being sold to us by the restaurants or the spaces that we choose to go and eat at, right? And so as a chef, you have this sense of responsibility on your shoulders that at least I do and all that work with us at Chin Chin and in the group do, where we have a sense of responsibility to deliver on that promise. you are coming to us because, yes, you want to be fed and you want to eat. So it must taste delicious and it must be yummy and but it also must look amazing. And so the crockery and the cutlery and the glassware and the tables and the seats and the finish on the walls and the music that's going on and the art that's chosen to be in the space, all of those things are some parts and are constituents of the whole experience that you leave with. And I feel largely why people continue to come back to dine with us and restaurants within our group. Any of the restaurants out there that you fall in love with, there's generally, like, everyone's got their favorite place, right? You generally choose that because there's thousands and thousands of restaurants. You could eat a different place every day for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You go back to the ones that strike an accord with you, that there's a resonance, and so yeah, sure, food is base, nourishment, sustenance, fills the hole, energizes. We break it down into energy and it powers us through the rest of the day. But at its most beautiful, it is it's dream and memory, and it's an interplay between the world we live in our head and the world we live in.
Yeah, in the immediate environment.
Out in society, right?
Yeah.
People rarely get to bring the two together so wholly. And for me, I feel like that's what great restaurants do. Everything else melts away and you find yourself buried in an experience. You find yourself really like engaged and committed to that hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it is that you've chosen to sit there for. The day falls away and you have flavors and aromas and sounds and it is wholly and solely an experience of being present and in the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. How closely would you work with the team outside of the kitchen to deliver a more holistic experience? Like, how much collaboration is there with the people that are deciding what the seats are going to look like, with what music is going to be played?
In the lead up to an opening, to the creation of a venue, there's a lot of that. And whoever's chosen to be part of the team that will be put into place to open any given venue within our, there is a lot of that, like an insanely large amount of, there is vision and there's awareness and there's a consciousness of what it is that the group wants to achieve, but within that there is testing and viewing and looking and seeing, and like, it's all well and good to say, hey, I want that fabric, that's what I want there. But then if you get that fabric and you test it for durability and wearability and for stain resistance, all those things, and it turns out to be a 1 out of 5 on 7 out of 8 scenarios, then you've got to look at it and go, well, I can't have that fabric.
Yeah.
What can I have? Because that's one of those points where I suggested point A to point B becomes an issue. If point B is where I decide I want to be, and I just decide that's where I'm going to be and that's how I'll get there, all the other factors that go into that becoming a really good choice are mitigated. They're gone. You remove them from being possible. And so you open and then suddenly 4 weeks in you go, this material is no good. Like, there's red wine stains on it. It's torn there. People find it abrasive on their jeans. Like, it's uncomfortable. It's scratchy.
Yeah, and you've tainted that experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so without doing all of the legwork prior that no one ever gets to see, and no one ever, you are basically ensuring that you will not hit the heights that you want to hit.
Yeah, but that's also, when you say that it's not something that people ever get to see, that's kind of almost like the point of it, right? Like, you don't want them to necessarily notice anything in particular. Like, whatever music or the sounds that they're hearing has to be almost blended in with the way that they're sitting in that seat, with the height of the table, with the crockery the cutlery and the crockery that's right in front of them. Nothing necessarily wants to be obvious, right? So it's one of those, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Like everything is contributing just to one core experience.
Yes. Yes. And yes and yes. But then also, like, sometimes the obvious is beautiful, right? Mozzarella and tomato. It's just delicious together.
Mm-hmm.
It just is. There are other ways of presenting mozzarella and tomato. You might change it might become scaramozza, or it might become burrata, or it might become, but it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You don't always have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
You have to know why you chose that wheel.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? And so, yes, largely there should be a lot that's not obvious. But also, if you're going to do something obvious, let people understand why you chose the obvious. Why don't let it be secondary. Let it own its space. I feel that's really important, right? So, like, for instance, I cook a lot of Southeast Asian cuisine. I love it. It's what makes me tick. It makes me happy. The spice and chili and acids and the sweet and the sour and the salty and all those things just make me happy. And at the same time, we live in Australia, which has not only the ability and the opportunity to grow a large number of those ingredients, but it also has a huge plethora of other ingredients that we also grow. So on the one hand, sure, do you normally find lamb in massaman curry? No. But Australia grows really great lamb.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't we utilize it, right? My experience of cooking Thai cuisine and my experience of traveling through Thailand and my experience of sharing space and time with the Thai people that I've had the good fortune and opportunity to share time with is that their nature seems to me to be intrinsically driven by this sense of who they are and knowing who they are and knowing how to bring outside influence into their lives without it overtaking who they are.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, pad thai, right, would seem to be one of the great Thai dishes of the world, deeply connected to the Chinese culture that came down through the north into Thailand and brought wok cooking and noodles, right? But you'd never know that. It seems obvious that pad thai is Thai. It seems less obvious that it was heavily influenced by other people. That's that notion of doesn't need to be obvious, but if you are going to be obvious, like just make it look really amazing and own the space. And so for me, integrity of dishes and authenticity of approach and understanding why that curry or why a red and not a yellow, why a green or a jungle, all those things is like, okay, I've chosen the scenario. Now, how does me being a chef in Australia impact that dish? What's the freedom that I can bring to that space through understanding the history of it and where it came from and why it ended up that way? And then how does it being here evolve?
I like that. I like the understanding or your notion of how everything kind of just coalesces to this one particular point, and now you being the chef with these reins and these resources. And we spoke and we touched on how there are certain, I guess, like a minority of people that would gatekeep in saying that this needs to be done in this particular way, and that they follow tradition and customs. And I understand that that is a way of maintaining some integrity in what it is that they're trying to create. But to your point, most of the time, these ideas, they're already an amalgamation of other ideas and other concepts. So I just wonder why it is that there has to be a line drawn in the sand at this particular point. Whereas, for you, it's more like it's just following the evolution of what creativity is going to be. Like, we have something that historically is this. Now, what else can we do based on the everything that we have on hand?
Yeah. And you've just even in that moment, you've sent my brain off into a space thinking reality is the only linear line that we have to live is time.
Yeah.
Which is a
That we have to experience. Yeah.
Is a created constraint that we've designed for ourselves so that we can register where we're at within it, right?
Mhm.
But it's the only linear line that we have to follow because we can't go backwards, right? Until someone in the future finds a way. But we can't go backwards. So within that, it sort of feeds off that everything does evolve.
Yeah.
Everything is evolution,
Mhm.
right? And so when you look at it, you go, well, I can take that piece here and because I've chosen to love it, I can build it into how we do this and why we do this. And it can become a component of what the future shape looks like and how it comes together. It would take a very clever mind to pull seemingly disparate entities together and create and diffuse them together in a way that a large number of people would be able to go, oh, that makes sense to me and I like that, right? That's why disruptors are not constantly happening, right? Disruptors in any chosen industry come about because a person pulled apart all the components within that thing and went, right, that's how we do it. That's how we've always done it. What if we did it this way?
Are you saying that it's not constantly happening? Because I would argue that it is constantly happening.
Only there are attempts at it constantly happening.
Yeah.
Actual disruptors that change the face of how things operate.
You mean like a seismic shift?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Are rare.
Yeah.
Right? Because human nature is to want to...
Preservation.
Yeah. Comfort.
Yeah.
Those parameters were working for us, so that's how we stay.
In the familiar.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if you want to break the mold, you've got to be comfortable going...
Yeah.
And so if you look at it, that linear line of time is the only thing that you need to follow. It makes everything else... Unless you're being a real cat about it, like if you... There is a freedom to pull in... We have become a global people, right? Why would I not fall in love with something from Bali and something from Thailand and something from Malaysia and something from Vietnam? And why would I not feel a desire to bring those beautiful things together and share? Because the overarching desire is for us to share a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
Why would I constrain myself to just going, well, that green curry has always got to be this way? Because that's what, if time is linear and we're only going forward, it would suggest that it should evolve.
Yeah. So it would be something that's just anchoring us in the past and preventing us from anything in particular in this timeline is trying to anchor itself in this present moment to not move ahead, but it has no choice but to move. So it's one of those things like adapt or die kind of situation. So you either adapt and you move along with the shifting of everything else that's going on, or you're just going to be locked and stuck.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is that you have a DNA, right?
Yeah.
Whatever you're doing has a DNA. It has a core structural element that helps people go, oh, that's like Apple, for instance. People know what their interfaces look like. They know what their, when Apple comes out with a new watch or whatever, it's like, yeah, those things allow people to go, cool, I get it. And then whatever amazing stuff they choose to do outside of that becomes feasible. And people will buy into it because they go, I get the DNA.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not always likely to buy into something new if they don't understand the DNA. The DNA provides this opportunity for people to go, I can have faith in that, right? It's a massive part of, like, if you look at it from a business scenario, It's consistency
Mm-hmm.
is DNA, right?
Yeah.
So, for instance, Chin Chin, we pride ourselves on the fact that consistency is incredibly important to us. The guest experience must be X, Y, and Z.
Mm.
And we are lucky to offer that to our guests every day, and we consider it the most important process of the business. It's not about my creativity or marketing's view on how that menu should look or the DJ's decision on what song to play. It's like, what is the consistency that makes our guests go, yes, I'm going back there again? It's the reason that they can say to their cousin from Adelaide, hey, you're over, you should go to Chin Chin, you'll have an amazing meal. And then the cousin goes and says, oh my God, that was amazing.
Yeah.
That's success. So the DNA component, that piece where you go, yes, I know it. If I suddenly do go out on a limb and go, here's this dish, people will go, well, I'll give it a go. I'm likely to try it.
Yeah.
I'm likely to have a crack at it because the strike rate here is pretty high. But if there's no strike rate, if there's no awareness, that's where the challenge lies, right?
Yeah, I saw this video, and I guess it was done in jest, but I totally agree with it. They were talking about Asian restaurants in particular, and I think that the examples that they use were Chinese restaurants, but I would also say that it translates to a lot of the Vietnamese restaurants around where I live, where they say that you look for the ones that are like getting the 3.5 stars. The 3.5 stars, some would be like 3 point something stars, because what you will find is that the food is incredible, but that's going to be offset by the service and the decor. So the sweet spot there is going to be that 3.5 stars. So where you guys give a lot of thought and consideration into that experience, there's a lot of places that I know that I frequent because the food is incredible. The service, decor, and everything sucks, but I say that asterisk. It sucks, but it adds to that atmosphere, right? Like,
Yeah.
like you're having there's fold-out chairs, it's slippery floors, wet tables. It's that kind of thing where it's like there was no, that was not intentional. It wasn't any thought given into it. There was no care about changing what that is. That's just how it's done.
Yeah.
But then you have the food, and the food is so great.
And it elevates the experience.
But then the whole thing becomes part of the experience.
Yeah.
So it's almost like if I want to have that type of food, that quality of food, I almost have to go find a place that has that environment, that setting as well. So then when I go into those places, I'm anticipating that this food is going to be excellent. So it's that disparity between the amount of consideration that you guys will have. You know, it's a much more elevated experience, of course. But then it doesn't have to mean that enjoying the food or the experience of it, it doesn't have to necessarily be at that level. It could be all the way down here, but when you appreciate it, it still feels like it's up here.
Yeah, for me, and it's the reason I'm still there 14 years later, right? Is that there is a sensibility to the way we choose to do things. And that sensibility is shared across the board. There's not a front of house experience going, well, who cares? We'll just turn up. Like, the front of house staff are ridiculously driven. The management are ridiculously driven. Our back of house office team are ridiculously driven. You know, like they're not necessarily in the venues every day, but they are as passionate about the venues and the way we operate as we are.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that makes it easy to turn up to work each day because I never feel like I'm doing anything in vain. I never feel like I put all this effort in and then no one else is supporting it, because I know they're supporting it. You know, it's evident and visually real to be able to go, well, no, of course they care. The way the runners pick up the plates and carry them, the way the expediter shares details of plates and where they're going and actually reads all the detail on a docket. You know, it's not like that's going to the table, blah, blah, blah. It's like that's going to table 1, it's position 3, it's got this allergy and this and this and this. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
everyone gives a fuck.
Yes.
Everyone feeds into the same vision.
And that's the sort of environment I want to be part of.
Yeah.
I want to be part of an environment where everyone is turning up to work today to be better than they were yesterday. And so that evolution piece is constant, right? And to never feel like you've ticked all the boxes. You asked about the menu and why and how it evolves. It evolves because we have never ticked all the boxes. We're lucky to be busy. We are incredibly fortunate to have an amazing guest interaction. The guests, Chin Chin really resonates with our guests, and people love it. It's luck and it's hard work. And so I want to continue to push the boundaries of what that means for our guests and for the team and for everyone around us so that we can continue to turn up to work with that focus every day.
Is that the drive, that's the purpose there, is to provide that an experience that is constantly being monitored and tweaked and adjusted and refined. But is there what's the underpinning purpose for you?
I was driving here this morning. I was wrestling with this in my head, and two words popped up for me to wrestle with on the way here. One was purpose, and the other was reason.
Oh, okay.
And initially, I was asking myself, are they connected? Are they cohesive? Do they always meet well together? Or
purpose and reason. So there's room for them to not connect.
Yes.
Okay.
And there's room for them to be completely at odds with each other. Right. And so for me, purpose is, my sense of purpose especially, is to deliver happiness. It's to deliver a sense of joy to all that come into contact with me. And I discovered very early in my career that food does that. Food makes people happy. Good food makes people happy. People love to finish something delicious and go, oh my God, that was wonderful. Like that was, it is rare to eat something incredible and not have to feel the need to share your thoughts on it.
It's true.
Right?
Does it elevate you to a different stratosphere as well when you've had a great experience?
It drives appreciation and it drives all those things within the guest, within the recipient of that food. It changes, right? And so that's my purpose. My purpose is joy and happiness. The reason for my purpose being there and the reason why I use my purpose to drive me is my family and the people I love. My purpose grants me happiness and it grants me a sense of fulfilling and it grants me a sense of a sense of wholesomeness, and the reason is never for me, just solely for me. It's for my family and the people I love, my wife, my kids, the extended family. For us, our friendship group is a huge part of that. They're the reason that I use my purpose as a driver.
I hadn't given it a thought that you could go another layer below the purpose. And I like that. I like that you are able to explore. The purpose isn't even just the why. Like, we always say, what's your why? But the fact that there is another layer to the why, it's like, what's the reason for your why? I think gives you a lot to think about. It's like it kind of makes that purpose more robust, right? So it doesn't feel so elusive. It keeps you anchored.
I feel like purpose always has a positive. It's always a optimistic, positive thing, right? And so, purpose, positive, yes. Reason can be at times, and reason can change. Reason doesn't necessarily have to be in the moment positive. So, for instance, if I pull that apart and I go, I've been cooking for 30 odd years. For the first 10 years of my children's lives, I wasn't there. I was at work 12, 14, 16 hours a day, every day. They rarely saw me. But there was a reason for that. I was trying to create a career from which my family could happily benefit in life, right? I could have chosen not to put in those hours, and it's likely that I probably wouldn't be where I am now. I probably still would have had success, but I wouldn't necessarily have been able to afford my family the lifestyle that I wanted them to live. And so there are moments where the reason has been, I need to do this in order to get to where I want to be in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Now, because I've done that, the reason is my family's happiness, my family's joy. It's attached to the purpose.
Yeah.
And so I'm more present, and I'm more often there for my kids, and I'm more often there for my family and for my friends. But there are times where that can't be the case also, right? Like Christmas period rolls around, it's incredibly busy.
Yeah.
You've got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, there's a high degree of self-awareness.
And allowing your reason to change can still facilitate your happiness, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the early days, Friday, Saturday, I was always at work.
Yeah.
Everyone else is out partying and enjoying themselves. As a 20-year-old, that's a fairly challenging thing to get your head around. Why am I at work when all my mates are enjoying themselves? Right? There's got to be a reason for it. If you can understand the reason, you can come to peace with being at work. If you can't understand the reason, then you're going to be at work thinking, this is shit and I don't want to be here. So the reason allows me at any given moment to decide whether I'm hitting the mark or I'm not hitting the mark. And the purpose is the overarching why that's important. The purpose can also change. Your purpose can evolve for sure. Mine has always been joy and happiness. I like to see people smile. I like to see them happy. And I like people to spend time in that, because life's hard. Life's brutal, right? It is this insanely difficult journey that if everyone was just to stay stuck in their challenges, no one would have time for any of the notion of where are you at and what are you doing and how's your day and why do you feel like that, right? It's why hospitality became my chosen field when I could have gone on to do economics law as a student, right? Hospitality, the art of hospitality is about being hospitable.
Hospitable, yeah.
Right? It is. It's not rocket science. We're not changing the world, but we are.
We're
making it a more
part.
pleasant place.
Yeah.
In which people can inhabit and become a part of.
Yeah.
That's what's key. Like we do what we do because here's a vision that looks amazing. I think people will really like that. Let's build it. You know, that's Chris, our boss, the owner of Lucas, Chris Lucas of Lucas Restaurants, is one of the greatest deliverers of internal vision into reality that I've ever met.
And he's really good at just getting the buy-in from the team.
There are very few other people that I've ever met that can go, hey, man, that's what it looks like, that's what it feels like. Here we go. Right, there it is. And then allow a team to become a component of that process and allow a team to deliver that and to be able to walk into it and go, oh, everything that you spoke about in that initial meeting where we discussed the fact that you had a new vision, I can sense and feel it. There's a wholesomeness to it. There's a wholeness to it. And it's about the hospitality. It's about the hospitableness of it,
Yeah.
and it's beautiful. You know.
Yeah, it's no coincidence that all the restaurants within the Lucas Group is renowned for that hospitality, for that experience, and it's gone beyond dining experience or just culinary. It's more than just that. It's a full sensory type.
It's
situation.
entertainment.
Yeah, it's entertainment.
Yeah.
Mate, there is so much of what you do that has contributed to not just Melbourne culture, but I think it has set a ripple effect to how dining experiences should be done, given the whole mishmash and amalgamation of different cultures. You know, it's something that you've navigated really well. I don't want to say perfectly, because there's always, you guys are always there tweaking your formula.
Well, it's an unattainable scenario, right?
Of course.
Perfect is non-existent.
Yeah.
Because the notion of perfection would suggest that if you achieve it, there is nothing more.
Exactly.
Right? Even if that is the case, even if it is I don't want to be part of that, because for me, you should always be aiming for evolution. And improvement.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate that comment, and I appreciate your seeing it that way. It makes me feel it's incredibly humbling. It's also really, I would never have thought of that impact.
It's absolutely true. I think that you speak with anyone within Melbourne, at least, knows of Chin Chin and recognise it for what it is, and it goes beyond the borders here. But I think that it's just that tenacity and that pursuit and the passion for refinement has made it what it is, right? So it's not just something that has rested on its laurels, but has been constantly trying to not recreate, but to evolve with the changing of everything else around it. So what is on the horizon for you and Chin Chin?
Always hungry, always
literally
curious,
and metaphorically.
Yeah. I mean, we released our third book last year.
Yes.
Which was a really wonderful experience. Probably the most fun I've had writing a book. It's our third cookbook in the series. Perchance there's another one in the future. I love that component of my career, the opportunity to deliver a creative piece and to go through the whole process of everyone that is involved in the construction of a book is really, really energizing and uplifting. And so the future is about just pushing, continue pushing. There may be more Chin Chins, who knows? If Chris said tomorrow, hey, sure, New York needs a Chin Chin, I would definitely put my hand up to be on the plane to go over and help that become a reality. I love Chin Chin. It is such a huge part of my life and my family's life and of who I am. It's humbling to be able to say that I am a piece of that puzzle. And so I continue to want to work in a manner that allows it to be the case. And for there to be no stagnation, for there to be no, like you said, resting on our laurels. Like it's all well and good to make 100 people happy today, but if you're not prepared to do the same thing tomorrow, that soon accounts for nothing. Yeah,
I think you also underestimate the influence that you had, even though I said that, that you can say the 100 people, right? Like you have offered something to this 100 hypothetical people on any given day. You've left an impression, a core memory of them experiencing something that they potentially never had before and might not ever again. And having that repeated that repeated experience and having to go do it day in, day out and have the motivation and the inspiration to continue doing that. But I think that it's also underestimated when I say that the ripple effect, that doing what it is that you do has set a particular benchmark. It came out of nowhere. Not out of nowhere. It was borrowing influences from other parts and created this one iconic restaurant.
It was a disruptor.
It was a disruptor. It absolutely was. And that's what I'm alluding to when I say this ripple effect, because then it casted off this whole shift and a movement of understanding and how do we now bring in Asian inspired food into the realm of Melbourne culture and give it a new take, a new spin that's going to be pushing boundaries without pushing it to the point where it's not accepted, but just challenging people's ideals and their value system. And however long ago that was, which is quite a while now. How long's Chin been around? It's like
14 years.
Yeah, I was going to say plus 10. And since then, and to what you were saying, it disrupted the scene, and it absolutely has. Mate, it has been a pleasure connecting with you. The conversations that I've had with you have been very enlightening, and it, just the opportunity to look at something that is seemingly not obvious, and to then peel it back and understand the place that it has and the purpose that it has in the whole bigger picture of things. This conversation could have gone in so many ways, and I'm sure that the next time we have another one, it's gonna deviate into all different avenues once again.
I've said to friends before, and I believe we spoke about it when we caught up last time, the best conversations always deliver a narrative that you weren't aware you were going to be part of.
Yeah.
Right? And so, like you said, who knew where today was going to go? We knew it would go somewhere.
Yeah.
And I love these opportunities. Like the opportunity to sit and talk and digest and think is really empowering and a huge component of how I drive the evolution of my life. It's those moments where action would seem to be something that requires results, bang, 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 right?
Mm-hmm.
Conversation rarely is about instant action next, but it's about action in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And so I value any time I get to share conversation with people who like to think deeply, and who like to challenge the notion of what is in front of us. You wrestle with it, and you digest, and you generally come out the other side with what if I put A with D with K with M, right? It's an equation, but what if I do this, this, and this? Yeah, and the chance to think drives those thought processes in me.
Yeah, and like you said, it all comes down to curiosity. And you did touch on earlier about how you have these seemingly unrelated categories, but there could be a space where they can live together. And I think that's what the curiosity drives, right? It's like the conversation that I have with you is, you as a chef will cook up a meal, but the value behind it and the wisdom behind it is going to be shared on this channel here with someone that could be writing music, and they will come up with a piece that has now been influenced by this conversation, and that musical piece will be heard by someone who's going to be potentially creating a visual art piece. And just through all of these seemingly unrelated events,
disparate entities.
That's
100%,
right.
Yeah.
And now we have this whole larger ripple effect that's been casted out just from thinking and being curious.
Yeah, you can either position yourself as someone who has made a choice to follow a career, and this is how that career works, or you can position yourself as someone who has a philosophy. And in my mind, this always works far greater and the philosophy drives how the career works, right? So rather than me just going, right, I turn up to work and I cook and I do this, essentially my food is its own philosophy. Like it's how did it end up on the plate because of this thought and that thought and this and those, and then it came together, and it's a representation of why and how I see life. And so, yes, the same can be for music, can be for art, can be for architecture, can be for literature, can be for any of those things where you are in a creative space and delivering a creative output. If you give yourself time to truly understand what your value sets are and the reason and the purpose and all those things, then you build a philosophical structure around how you operate, and that helps to carry you forward through life.
I honestly, I've had so much to think about just from our conversation, and it really this is the first time, literally I was saying to my wife yesterday, the first time in my life where I feel as though that I'm now on this path of fulfilling my potential. It was for so long, for the last, I guess, almost 42 years, I felt like I've been meandering and just not even really having much agency in what I was doing and where I was going. And almost because of all the seemingly upward failures, I ended up starting this podcast, connecting with incredible people like yourselves, all different artists of all different gamuts. And now it has narrowed down what I want to do, and it feels for the first time like it feels right. And so it's just a matter of just continuing this. There was, everyone has to deal with imposter syndrome. I had that, but for the longest, for right now, it's like, no, this is where I should be. This is where I've landed right now, is where I should be. So it's
imposter syndrome is merely an accountability check, right? It's your brain's way of saying, hang 10, are you really giving everything that you could in the given moment to what you've chosen to do?
Yeah.
It's not saying you're not good enough. That's one way of hearing it.
Yeah.
It's not saying you don't fit. It's another way of hearing it. It's saying you committed to this. Are you bringing everything to the table?
Yeah. It's a good way.
Because if you look at it and go, oh, why am I doing this? And surely what I'm doing isn't as good as what they're doing. Then you can go, well, is that the case? And if it is the case, what else can I bring to the table?
Yeah.
So you can use it to energize yourself rather than to derail you, right? So it's popped up a couple of times in the last week, this piece on anxiety. Anxiety is driven by a set of thoughts that are rarely real.
Yeah.
Okay. Right? Because real scenarios deliver action.
Yeah.
Car's in front of me, I'm going to get hit, I jump out of the way. That's a real scenario. What if I'm crossing the street and a car hits me is anxiety. It's not, I've got time to think about it, right? I have time to digest it, which means that it's not real. Because the real action, cars coming, I'm going to get hit, drives me to action.
Have you read The Power of Now by
No.
Eckhart Tolle? He touches on that. He speaks about dealing and managing problems. And he says that there are no such things as problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're either doing something about it or you're not. And if you're not, it's not a problem.
That's right. 100%.
Yeah.
So I tell my kids, like with school, every problem, the answer is encased in it.
Yeah.
The answer, the solution is within the question and the problem. It is given to you. I need this. Okay. Well, where is this?
Yeah.
Right? Rather than going, I need this, and then you going, oh shit, what is that? And fretting, it's like, here's a question. Okay. Well, then the answer's right there. So how do I pull the answer out?
And then you can expand on that and the whole, and it's not necessarily just about that question. It is a derivative of life.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you're going to be asked questions all the time, whether or not you're aware that you're being asked, but the questions are always there and you will run into them. And it's just having that fortitude to approach it in a way that's going to, yield a resolution rather than just bearing it, where then it just becomes a bigger issue that you have to deal with at a later stage.
100%.
Benjamin Cooper, thank you so much for jumping on, man.
Oh, a pleasure. I mean, it's...